Hey everyone, and welcome to another Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something that's been making headlines and sparking debates all over. Bitcoin.
It really has captured the imagination.
It definitely has. So we're going to break it all down, what it is, how it works, and why it matters. And we'll do it in a way that anyone can understand.
The goal is to make it surprisingly clear, even if you're brand new to the whole world of cryptocurrency.
Exactly. So for those of us just starting to explore this world, what is Bitcoin in the simplest terms?
Well, think of it like digital cash.
Digital cash.
But with a twist, there are no banks or governments involved.
Oh, interesting. So no more waiting for those bank transfers or dealing with international fees.
Exactly. And because it's decentralized, it's also censorship resistant.
Okay, I'm intrigued. But how does it actually work? What stops people from, I don't know, creating fake Bitcoin out of thin air?
That's where the blockchain comes in. Imagine a giant public ledger.
A ledger.
Yep. And this ledger records every single Bitcoin transaction.
So every time someone sends or receives Bitcoin, it's logged on this ledger.
Right. But here's the key. This ledger isn't kept in one place. It's distributed across a massive network of computers all over the world.
So it's like a shared Google Doc, but for Bitcoin.
Pretty much. And because it's spread out like this, it's incredibly secure. Once a transaction is recorded on the blockchain, it's virtually impossible to change or erase it.
That's fascinating. But hold on, if anyone can see this ledger, doesn't that mean everyone knows how much Bitcoin I have and where I'm sending it?
Well, not exactly. The blockchain is transparent in terms of recording transactions, but it doesn't reveal your personal information.
So how does that work?
You're represented by a unique alphanumeric address. Think of it like a public mailbox. People can send you mail, but they don't know your name or home address.
Ah, okay. That makes more sense. But how do we ensure this massive distributed ledger is accurate? Who's making sure nobody's messing with it?
That's where mining comes into play.
Mining. So we're literally digging for digital gold.
Well, not literally. Bitcoin mining is all about powerful computers solving complex math problems.
Math problems.
Yep. And by solving these problems, they verify and add new transactions to the blockchain.
So these miners are like the guardians of the Bitcoin network.
Exactly. They're incentivized to do this because they get rewarded with newly created Bitcoin for their efforts.
It sounds like a digital gold rush. But what stops someone from just using a supercomputer to mine all the Bitcoin really quickly?
That's where the brilliance of the Bitcoin protocol comes in. It automatically adjusts the difficulty of those math problems based on how much computing power is being used for mining.
So it keeps things balanced.
Exactly. It ensures that new Bitcoin are created at a predictable and controlled rate.
That's pretty ingenious. So does that mean there's a limit to how many Bitcoin can ever exist?
Yes, there is. The maximum supply is capped at 21 million.
Wow, only 21 million. That seems pretty low.
It's a deliberate choice. This scarcity is one of the factors that gives Bitcoin its value. Think of it like digital gold finite and becoming increasingly difficult to mine over time.
So that's why some people compare it to gold.
Exactly. And this limited supply also plays into what's called the halving event, which happens roughly every 4 years.
Halving. What's that?
Essentially, the reward that miners receive for adding a block to the blockchain gets cut in half.
So it becomes harder and more expensive to mine Bitcoin.
Precisely. It's like a scheduled scarcity event, making Bitcoin potentially more valuable in the long run.
Fascinating. But before we dive deeper into the economics of Bitcoin, I have to ask, who created all of this? Who is the mastermind behind this revolutionary technology?
Well, that's one of the biggest mysteries in the cryptocurrency world.
A mystery.
Bitcoin's creator used the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, and to this day, no one knows their true identity.
No one. That's incredible.
We have the 2008 white paper outlining the concept, the network launch in 2009, and records of the very first Bitcoin transactions. But the person or people behind it all have vanished into thin air.
Wow. Talk about an enigma. It's like a modern-day treasure hunt, trying to figure out who Satoshi Nakamoto really is.
Exactly. There have been so many attempts to unmask them, but nothing conclusive yet. It could be one brilliant mind, a group of developers, or even AI, who knows?
That just adds another layer of intrigue to the whole Bitcoin phenomenon. But let's get back to the practical side of things. What are people actually using Bitcoin for these days? Is it just for tech-savvy investors, or are there real-world applications?
Bitcoin is being used more and more as a way to pay for goods and services.
Rightly.
Businesses, online shops, even some brick-and-mortar stores are starting to accept it. You can even buy pizza with Bitcoin.
Easy.
It's a legendary story in the Bitcoin community. Back in 2010, a programmer bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 bitcoins.
10,000 bitcoins. I can't even imagine what that would be worth today.
It highlights how much Bitcoin's value has skyrocketed over the years. But beyond pizza, it's being used for investments, sending money across borders, and even as a way to protect against economic instability in some countries.
It sounds like Bitcoin is slowly finding its way into the mainstream.
It is. But with that said, we can't ignore the concerns around safety. We hear stories about hacking and scams.
Right. So how safe is it really?
Well, the Bitcoin network itself is incredibly secure thanks to the blockchain and cryptography.
So the system itself is sound.
Very much so. But the risks often come from how people manage their Bitcoin. If you don't take the right precautions to protect your Bitcoin wallet and those private keys, you could be vulnerable to hacking or theft.
So it's like having Fort Knox for your Bitcoin. But if you leave the keys lying around, someone could still swipe your treasure.
Exactly. It's crucial to use strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and only download software from trusted sources.
Be smart and be aware, just like with any other digital finance.
Exactly. Don't let fear stop you from exploring Bitcoin, but security should always be a top priority.
Solid advice.
And, I think it's important to remember that while Bitcoin is fascinating in itself, the underlying technology, the blockchain, is what's truly revolutionary.
You're right. We've been mainly focusing on Bitcoin today, but that blockchain technology has much broader implications, doesn't it?
It does. But we'll save that deep dive into the world of blockchain for another time. For now, I think we've given everyone a pretty solid understanding of what Bitcoin is and how it works.
Absolutely. And just a quick reminder that this deep dive is purely for educational purposes. This isn't financial advice.
Always do your own research and talk to a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Well said.
So I think it's time to broaden our view a bit.
You're right. We've covered the basics of what Bitcoin is.
The nuts and bolts.
Yeah. Now let's zoom out and look at the potential impact. How could Bitcoin change the world?
Well, on a fundamental level, it challenges the very idea of what money is and how it works.
How?
It operates completely outside of governments and central banks. It offers an alternative to those traditional financial systems.
So greater freedom and autonomy for individuals.
Exactly. And in terms of real-world use, well, we talked about buying pizza,
Right.
but it goes beyond that. Think about things like cross-border payments, sending money overseas.
Yeah.
With Bitcoin, those transactions could be much faster and cheaper. No more waiting forever for those bank transfers or dealing with those ridiculous fees.
That would be a game changer for so many people.
Absolutely, especially for those in regions with limited access to traditional banking.
Okay, but what about the elephant in the room? Bitcoin's price volatility. Why is it so up and down?
It's a combination of things. The market size for Bitcoin is still relatively small compared to, say, stocks or bonds.
So smaller waves make bigger ripples.
Exactly. Even a small amount of trading can cause big price swings. And then you have things like news headlines, regulations, even what people are saying on social media. All of that can trigger buying or selling frenzies.
So it's very sentiment driven.
Very much so. But keep in mind, Bitcoin is still young. As the market matures, we might see things stabilize.
Makes sense. So for those who are willing to ride those waves, what are the potential rewards? What makes Bitcoin so attractive as an investment?
One big factor is that fixed supply we talked about earlier.
Only 21 million Bitcoin ever?
Right. Unlike traditional currencies, which governments can just print more of whenever they want, diluting their value.
Inflation and all that.
Exactly. But Bitcoin's supply is capped. This scarcity, along with growing demand, has driven its price up significantly over time.
It's like digital gold.
A lot of people see it that way, a store of value, a hedge against inflation, maybe even a safe haven during times of economic uncertainty. And because it's not tied to any government.
It's like an escape hatch.
For some, yes, a way to protect their wealth from political instability or unpredictable monetary policies.
That's powerful. But we do need to acknowledge the risks too.
Absolutely. Bitcoin is speculative. Its future value is uncertain. There's always the possibility of losing money.
So not for the faint of heart.
It's important to be cautious, do your homework, and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Words to live by. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Some people believe Bitcoin could revolutionize the entire financial system. Is that realistic?
Well, its decentralized nature is certainly disruptive. It cuts out those traditional middlemen like banks and financial institutions.
Peer-to-peer direct transactions.
Exactly. And because everything is recorded on the blockchain transparently and permanently,
No more shady dealings.
it has the potential to reduce fraud and increase accountability, empower individuals to have more control over their own finances.
That's a compelling vision. But what about the hurdles? What's standing in the way of Bitcoin going truly mainstream?
One big one is scalability. The network, as it exists now, can only handle a limited number of transactions per second.
So it could get bogged down if everyone starts using it,
Exactly. It can lead to delays and higher fees during busy periods.
like a traffic jam on the information superhighway.
You got it. But developers are working on solutions. Things like the Lightning Network.
To speed things up.
Exactly. Then there's the regulatory landscape. It's still very much a gray area for a lot of governments.
They're playing catch up.
Very much so. That uncertainty makes some businesses and investors hesitate.
It's a balancing act, fostering innovation, but also making sure things are done responsibly.
Absolutely. Finding that balance will be key to Bitcoin's long-term success. But the potential benefits are huge.
Democratizing finance, empowering individuals, creating a more transparent global economy.
A bold vision, for sure.
Sure.
Whether it comes to fruition, only time will tell. But the movement is gaining momentum.
It feels like we're watching a new financial paradigm being born.
It does, doesn't it? And it's important to remember that even beyond Bitcoin itself, the underlying technology, the blockchain, is impacting all sorts of industries.
Supply chains, healthcare, even voting systems.
Exactly. But that's a whole other deep dive for another time. Let's recap our Bitcoin exploration. What are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Good idea.
I'd say the most important thing is to understand the fundamentals. What is Bitcoin? How does it work? What are the potential benefits and risks?
Knowledge is power, especially in the world of cryptocurrency.
Absolutely. And be cautious with investments. Do your own research. Never invest more than you can afford to lose.
And just to reiterate, we are not offering financial advice here. This is purely for educational purposes.
Well said. Now let's take a leap beyond Bitcoin and dive into that fascinating world of blockchain technology.
Welcome back. We've explored the ins and outs of Bitcoin.
Unpacked a lot of complex ideas.
We did, and now it's time to broaden our perspective. Look beyond Bitcoin itself.
To the bigger picture.
Exactly. To the world of blockchain technology.
It's fascinating. Bitcoin was the first application, but it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right. Blockchain has implications that go way beyond cryptocurrency.
It does. It's like discovering a new form of energy.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Think about it. This energy can power all kinds of amazing things.
Give me some examples.
Imagine supply chains that are completely transparent and tamper-proof.
Wow.
Medical records that are secure but easily accessible. Voting systems that are immune to fraud. All thanks to blockchain.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's happening. Blockchain is already being used in all sorts of industries.
Transforming how we do business.
Absolutely. How we manage data, how
Yeah.
we interact with the world.
So what is it about blockchain that makes it so powerful, so versatile?
One key thing is its ability to create trust.
Trust.
Yes. And transparency, but in a decentralized way.
Okay, explain that.
Traditional systems rely on intermediaries to build trust. Banks, governments, big institutions.
Right, the middlemen.
Exactly. But blockchain cuts them out.
Direct interaction.
Yes. And because everything is recorded on the blockchain,
Immutably.
yes, it minimizes the risk of fraud, empowers individuals, gives them more control.
It's like building a digital foundation of trust.
A very solid foundation. And upon that, we can build all sorts of amazing things.
So we have decentralized finance, DeFi,
Right.
NFTs,
Non-fungible tokens.
which are, well, we'll save that for another deep
I
dive.
could do a whole series on NFTs.
Definitely. But it's clear that blockchain is disrupting so many industries.
And creating brand new ones.
It's like a digital renaissance.
I love that. And we're just getting started. As the technology matures, we can expect even more innovation, more transformation.
It's exciting. A little bit daunting, maybe.
Sure, but mostly exciting. It's a new frontier.
And for anyone who's feeling a little lost, what's the best advice?
Be curious. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Dive in.
Explore.
Yes, that's the spirit. The world of blockchain is constantly evolving. There's always something new to learn.
So, to wrap up our deep dive into Bitcoin and blockchain, any final thoughts?
The key takeaway: these technologies are powerful. They have the potential to reshape our world.
In big ways.
In big ways. And it's up to each of us to engage with them responsibly.
Understand them.
Yes, to think critically, to shape their future.
Beautifully said.
It's been a pleasure joining you for this deep dive.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us.
We hope you've learned something new and are feeling inspired to explore the world of blockchain.
And remember, this was purely for educational purposes. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research.
And talk to a qualified professional before making any investment decisions.
Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring.